Hello, Laziali all over the world. Welcome to a really special episode of Lazio Lounge, and you can understand it watching Alistair McKenzie if you are following us on YouTube. But if you are following to this podcast on iTunes, Spreaker, and Spotify, so only the audio version. Alistair, why are you wearing a birthday hat?
Got the party hat on because it's our birthday, Vittorio. Lazio Lounge turns 3 today, I think. And I think we can all say, I've even got a balloon here. Hang on a sec. It's got the number 3 on it. There you go. Yeah, 3 years old. I can't remember how many podcasts you said we've done, but quite a long time by now.
177. This is 178. I'm gonna start counting them at this point. Friday, if you're listening on Friday, it's our birthday, 3 years. We started 29th of May of 2017. At that time, Alistair, the league was pretty much over. I think it was the last match of Serie A. We have big news to talk about today, Alistair, because it looks like Serie A is just going to restart in a couple of weeks. Big news, big excitement. Finally, Spadafora made the move. Big meeting on Thursday with all the heads of Serie A, Serie B, etc., to decide if it was the case to restart Serie A. It's funny because the day that Premier League announced that they're going to restart the 17th of June, in a couple of hours later, Serie A announced that it will restart. It looks like, because the calendar is going to be decided Friday, it looks like the 13th of June, Coppa Italia is going to start, so with the semi-final, and then the 17th, the final, and then on the 20th, Serie A is going to restart. Now, the question is, will it restart with the match that are missing of the past fixture, or it will be with the new Serie A matches? Alistair, what's your thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, the two options that appear to be on the table at the moment are that they'll kick off with the full round of, I think it would be week 27. So everybody plays over one weekend, and then 3 days later in the midweek round, they would get those 4 week 25 games that were postponed to be played. But then the other hypothesis that's been talked about is beginning with those 4 postponed games, so that once everybody starts at the same time, they're all on even number of games. Now, this should be decided tomorrow when, like I said, gets together again to talk about these things. So apologies if you're listening to this and you already know what happens. But for me, it would definitely make a lot more sense on the 20th, because it's basically a celebration of Serie A returning and the country getting to a point again where we're able to have football back on again. So I think that needs to be something that's celebrated by having a full round of fixtures. I think it would be a bit anticlimactic to go in and have 4 postponed games, and none of which are particularly exciting, it has to be said. And obviously, from our perspective, it would mean not watching Lazio on the opening weekend either.
Plus, they're already starting with Coppa Italia, that are only 4 matches. So, yeah, we already start with a few matches, and then we have to wait. The plan would be the 23rd or 24th of June to see Lazio. And let's not forget that it's a very tough match because it's Atalanta-Lazio. It could be, as probably the toughest match for Lazio after Juventus-Lazio, probably, for the rest of the season. So, it's quite difficult to start like that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Atalanta away. I mean, obviously, all these games will be played behind closed doors and within very kind of strict conditions. So you do take away the home advantage to a certain amount, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it's been quite interesting. I've been following the Bundesliga since that restarted, and I've heard people talk about, yeah, exactly. That's better than watching the Faroe Islands, which was where we got to before that. But yeah, I mean, it's been quite interesting looking at that, and there were various theories flying around before it started about how the technical teams might restart in better form than the teams who are more dependent on high pressing or running or very energetic physical game plans. And it's been quite interesting also to hear kind of Bundesliga commentators talking about the fact that the form teams were in before this break, there's actually been quite a big matchup between the form teams who were going into the break and coming out of it again. And, teams who were in crisis at that point have restarted in crisis again, like Schalke. And then teams who were flying at the time, like, your Dortmund or your Bayerns, have come out very strongly. So it'll be very interesting to see if a similar thing happens in Serie A, but it is worth remembering that this is a much longer break than there was in Germany. Also that, the quarantine measures, the lockdown that most of these players have been in has been a lot stricter as well. I tweeted this earlier, but by the time the Serie A gets back underway on the 20th of June, it'll be almost 15 weeks. Over 100 days since the last game took place. So I think it's going to be pretty much not quite the roll of a dice, but it's going to be quite unpredictable what we're going to see that weekend as well.
Yes, and one thing we notice is the number of injured have increased massively, and a lot of sports doctors have talked about this. There's a big risk of injury. We already know that the calendar, it's gonna be complicated because it's gonna end the first week of August. I think it's the 2nd of August is gonna be the last week of games, and they're pretty much playing every 3 days. So there's not gonna be a lot of rest for these players. Some teams doesn't have that many options of players, so there are gonna be some problems. My fear is that Lazio, who didn't play Europe League for have an advantage, will lose this type of advantage, as the Champions League and the European competition will be played after the league, and Serie A will play every 3 days. So there are some concern. At least I have a lot of concern about this for Lazio. This is a problem. It should be end the first week of August. The first 2nd of August should be finishing the Serie A. Lazio finish against Napoli away, so another complicated match at that time. Alistair, do you have my same concern about playing every 3 days? Do you think this is a disadvantage for Lazio?
Yeah, well, I think it's a disadvantage for every team, considering the condition their players are inevitably going to be in here. It's certainly a disadvantage for the teams with smaller squads, of which Lazio are one in comparison to the teams around them at the top of the table, certainly. But yeah, to be honest, before anything else, before we get carried away with this kind of stuff, I think for me, I still hold quite big concerns over actually if we get there, because the headline today has been the fact that the government is allowing football to restart, that we're going to get dates and fixtures drawn up, and it's all going to look very promising. But what's been, not hidden away, but what's not been making the headlines quite so much tonight has been the fact that the medical protocol, which has been the all-important facet to this the entire way through, still includes a 2-week quarantine for the whole team if there's a single case of coronavirus with a player or staff member. What that means is that the person who contracts the virus will be put into isolation immediately, but the entire rest of the squad and staff will be put essentially in retiro. They'll be locked up in either the training camp or a hotel or nearby or something, and they'll have to stay there for 2 weeks, still be able to train, but they'll be tested every 48 hours and they won't be able to play any fixtures. Now, that is going to happen. There will be a positive case. There have been so many already throughout the Serie A clubs. There will be a positive case at some point. So the question is, are we actually going to be able to finish this season? Because although the government's technical scientific committee have spoken, well, reportedly have spoken about the possibility of lowering it to 1 week, the quarantine period, in order to be able to actually play fixtures. I just don't understand at which stage they draw the line and they say, okay, yeah, today we've had only 200 new cases, so now it's fine to have a 1-week quarantine. I mean, at what point do they make that decision? They've been very cautious the whole way through, and I can't really see them, giving us any particular leeway on that unless they're absolutely 100% certain that they can. And I don't think in the current conditions with that quarantine in place that it's going to be possible to complete the season.
Especially because even if they get 7 days of quarantine, as Serie A is playing every 3 days, it means that team will miss three matches. And what happened when they recover these matches? So yeah, that's the biggest problem. Unfortunately, they didn't follow what's going on in Germany. If one player get COVID-19, he get isolated, but the rest of the team train regularly. Instead, in Italy, they decide to put all the team out. And this is the biggest problem. And one thing to point out is that our friend Spadafora said that there's already an option B and option C ready.
Yeah.
So they are aware that this is going to happen. And so they have a plan B, a plan C. I have to be very honest. I am not a big fan of plan B, especially if the playoff is between 8 teams. I mean, if they stop the league, they should divide, the Scudetto playoff, the Champions League playoff, and so on, because it wouldn't make sense to have teams 17 points behind fighting for the Scudetto.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that was going to be the next thing I got onto. I mean, the plan B that he talked about, like you say, is the playoff and play out. And then the plan C is the freezing of the league table. So essentially ending the season as it is at that point. I think that's the wrong way round, personally. I think that if you're going to end a season, you have to freeze the league table as it is. Because for me, if you're going to alter the format, the structure of a competition, you have to do it from the start to actually give that competition any sort of integrity. So I honestly wouldn't mind if next season, they're going to have to do something about next season because they're not going to have a summer break. They're not going to have enough time to fulfill a normal fixture calendar. The virus might even come back. I mean, I think it makes a lot more sense to either do everything or extend this as long as possible to get this season finished, or end it as it is, because that's based on merit as to how this season was panning out before. It doesn't make any sense to just completely alter the terms of the competition and make it into some sort of NBA-style playoff system. If you want to do that for next season, then okay, you can do that for next season, but you have to be clear from the start that this is what we're doing this season in order to actually give that competition some sort of integrity. So the playoff thing for me, I've always, this whole way through, tried to or wanted to kind of ignore the idea of it because I thought realistically, come on, I mean, nobody can honestly think that that's a good idea. It's the kind of thing that will have repercussions for years to come, and nobody's going to be happy with it. Nobody's going to really, think that whoever wins it is the Scudetto winner. Nobody's going to take it that seriously. So for me, I think that it's a terrible idea, but the most terrifying thing about it is that with things in place, my logic here of the quarantine measures meaning that we won't be able to complete the season brings me to the point of where we're going to plan B, which is the playoffs. So it's looking a lot more likely than it ever has done before after today, which I don't think is something that people are talking about enough. And obviously we don't know, like you say, the top 8 would be ridiculous, but they're going to have to draw a line somewhere. They're going to have to find a format to make this work. So there are various kind of hypotheses about how that might be formulated, whether the Scudetto is between Juve, Lazio and Inter, whether it's just Juve and Lazio, whether it's the whole top 4, whether it's the whole top 8, however you do it. But it's just, I think, a really, really flawed idea, and I'm worried they've kind of rushed into making that idea because they want games on and they wanted and needed a plan B to present to the government in order to actually be able to get games on again.
Yeah, it could be that they just said we're gonna do like this, but don't have nothing on mind specific. Even because, and we didn't talk about that, we know that Sky didn't pay the last part of the deal of the TV rights, and that's a lot of money for Serie A clubs. So I think Serie A clubs were in a rush to restart football because they need that money, and so maybe they were pushing to restart, allowing Spadafora to have some wins. Even though I don't believe that if they decide to do the playoff, Lotito will be happy about that. But not only Lotito, I think even Agnelli, the Juventus owner, won't be happy if something like that happened, because I think Juventus and Lazio deserve to fight for the title. I don't think Roma or Atalanta has nothing to do with that. So, my first thought when I read that the quarantine thing wasn't cancelled, was always there, is, there were big doubts yesterday that one member of Bologna staff got the coronavirus. So this could happen in the coming weeks. And what happened? It's silly to stop one team because one player or one member of the staff, is not only a player, can be a member of the staff, get the virus. So yeah, I wish we did it the German way, but it looks like we are not very well organized like them. So this is going to be a big problem. And the first thing I have in mind is like team like Brescia, who has no willing to restart the season. They would be happy to stop it like that, freeze it, and avoid the relegation. Maybe they could do it on purpose and get someone get the virus, and everything is over. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a really tricky one. I mean, I hate to put a dampener on this, because it should be a night where we're kind of celebrating finally having some football to look forward to again. But I think that it's not even the small print, but the kind of sub clauses of this and the circumstances as to why it's how it's going ahead, I should say, make it quite difficult for me to be able to see this going flawlessly. Between now and August, not having a single case coming up in any team and being able to play that regularly. I mean, there are still lots of unanswered questions. Kickoff times is another one, Vittorio, with the summer heat here and how that's going to be a factor. And they've talked about 3 separate kickoff times. It's not been confirmed yet what they're going to do about it, but initially 4:30 was being talked about, the earliest one, and you wouldn't want to play football at 4:30 in the afternoon in Italy in July or June. And now they're talking about having them as late as 9:30 at night. But yeah, I mean, that's another issue. It's you're talking about the fitness, the injury worries with the players, but that's going to be one as well. I mean, it's going to be more testing for them in those conditions than ever before, really. I mean, this is the reason we don't really play over the summer.
No, that's why the league ends in May, right? And it's already hot in May. Imagine playing the 1st of August in Lecce, at 2:00 in the afternoon, or Napoli. That's going to be awful. That's going to be really terrible, really testing for the player. So that's why Serie A football usually ends end of May or beginning of June, because it's not England there. It's too hot to play at that time. So that's going to be another problem. Even though I was reading today, I don't know if it was a doctor or something like that, saying that if they play during lunchtime, for example, being so hot will prevent injury, because they won't rush too much, they won't run too much, so they would be moving slower because it's too hot, and this could prevent injury. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but
so the football's going to be terrible then.
Yeah, probably it's going to be very slow-paced football. But again, as you were saying, it has been a long pause, and it's not like the summer break. You don't do friendlies, you hardly train. So I'm very curious to see how teams will play football, and if they will be able to perform for 90 minutes. I'm thinking about Atalanta, that it's a fast-paced team that run for 95 minutes. I doubt they're going to be able to do it now, even if they have 5 subs. I mean, you should be able to change all the team to run 95 minutes like Atalanta does most of the time. So, I'm curious. Maybe Atalanta will play 35 minutes like that, and the rest of the match destroyed. So there are a lot of question marks. I don't know if we're going to call it football anyway, because it's going to be completely different. So, sometimes maybe stopping it would be the best idea. I know there's a lot of money involved, and obviously you're 1 point from the Scudetto. It's a little bit annoying that. So they have to restart, but it's going to be curious to see how they're going to perform.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's all sorts of unknowns and questions remaining unanswered. And you mentioned the Sky problem, the broadcast deals, which are still rolling on and look like they may go through the courts to actually get that one decided. Also, there's still no decision on what to do about players with expiring contracts. And as it stands, everyone with an expiring contract at the end of this season, and that's a lot of players, or loan players for that matter, is going to be heading out of their clubs 10 days after Serie A restarts on the 30th of June. So, yeah, I mean, you would like to think that these are all things that are going to get sorted, but when you put together the issues with the medical protocol and the quarantine, the kickoff times, the health of the players and their possible injury problems, the contract situations, the broadcast deals, there's still a lot to be answered here. It's great to get some positive news and to get a date set and to get the ball rolling again. But I think, we don't want to pull wool over people's eyes. I think there needs to be no doubt about the reality of the situation, that there still are quite a lot of answers needing.
Yeah, it would be funny that, for example, Ibrahimovic plays till the 30th of June for Milan, and then from the 1st of July he plays for Inter. That would be funny, right? This is something that can happen. The contract ends the 30th of June. From the 1st, he is able to play with another team. Usually there's a summer break, but now there isn't. So, players can play for a team till the 30th of June, and then from the 1st of July play for another one. That would be terrible, I think, because, it can change Serie A completely. But there are even not only loans, there are, think about Senad Lulic. His contract is expiring the 30th of June. So what's going to happen? I know FIFA is talking about extending the contract, but would they find a deal? We know that Abbiano Tomasi, for example, is not happy. He says that it's not good for football players play in June, July, August in Italy, and that hot condition, etc. I think it's not easy to please everybody, especially in this situation. We have to find a compromise, but that of the contract is a serious issue because, again, I don't see players playing for free for a club, or they virtually extend the contract for 2 months. I don't know. They have to find a solution, but it's not easy. It's not easy.
Yeah, well, this is the thing. I mean, they talked about getting those contracts extended to August 31st, which I think is supposed to be the kind of end to the European season. But yeah, some of these teams are, not paying their players, not able to pay their players. So what use is it to them to be told, okay, why don't you stick around for another 2 months and not get paid? I mean, it is difficult. It's a very difficult situation. I would like to think that with things like the contracts, it will be taken care of because it's in everyone's interest across the federations. So, yeah, we should be okay there. But it's the other aspects that worry me a little bit more. But yeah, why don't we move on to some cheerier news this week?
You want to talk about
what our Presidente has been up to?
Yeah, it looks like Gazeta dello Sport loves a lot Claudio Lotito because I don't remember, honestly.
Everyone loves Claudio Lotito. It's well known.
I mean, I don't remember a newspaper attacking for 3 consecutive days a president of a football club. like Gazeta dello Sport did with Claudio Lotito. So the first day it was about Lotito interview with Repubblica, where he said everybody saw Juventus Inter, and these journalists have pretty much did a summary of all the accident Lotito had in the past. So all the bad things that Lotito made, and Lotito immediately made a press release, and he's pursuing the journalists. So I don't know if they're going to go to court, etc. But this was day one. Day two was an article of all the advantage Lazio had by referee mistakes, and that's so funny because they talk about the 2 penalty against Atalanta. That the same journalist said that they were penalty for Lazio. Talked about the extra injury time about Cagliari Lazio. That again, it was clear that need to recover all that time. So it was a strange attack against Claudio Lotito. And the third day is this thing about Zarate and Lotito. Lotito paying Zarate not the full money directly to avoid taxes. And it looks, this was an article come up that was published 7 years ago. So it's bizarre that now suddenly it comes out. But yeah, Alistair, I didn't expect a great newspaper like Gazeta dello Sport attacking so clearly Claudio Lotito.
Yeah, I mean, I have a subscription to Gazeta, so I tend to go through it in the morning every day. And on the whole, I find that they're usually fairly balanced in comparison to what you get used to in this country in terms of sports coverage. But yeah, I mean, I remember reading the first one, and the first thing I thought when I was reading it was, Lotito's not going to like this. And I could just see that press release coming from a mile off, where he threatened legal action and so on. But it was a bit bizarre because, I mean, fair enough, the comment he made about, Juve Inter is a bit of a coincidence, so on. He wasn't the only one making those kind of comments. And yes, it's not really something he should be saying, but seemed a bit of a strange time to drag it up and make something of it. And yeah, the list of reasons that Lazio have been lucky with refereeing decisions this season is farcical, really. I mean, it's not really journalism. There's nothing to see here. It's why you can just do that for any team. There's no point in just picking Lazio out and saying, look at what's happened with them this season. And the whole argument about Lazio having lots of penalties is nonsensical, because Lazio are one of the most attack-minded teams in the league, and they spend more time in the penalty area than any other team, which is why they win more penalties. But anyway, the most concerning one for me is obviously the last one, because that seems to have bones to it. That's not just a case of a newspaper taking a dislike to Lazio or to the president. That is a story that looks like it's going somewhere. And to explain it, the story is essentially that around Mauro Zarate's contract at Lazio, and the fact that he was agreed to be given a salary of 7 million euros paid normally, but then an extra 13 million in commissions over 5 years that were to be paid to a company in London and then passed on to a company, I think, in Argentina, before ending up in Zarate's pocket. And Zarate's agent from the time has come out and said that Lotito was doing these deals under the table and so on. And that's something he can get in trouble for, because it's tax evasion. So it's a bit of an issue. And it was supposed to be aired on a TV program here in Italy. I think it was on Wednesday night it was supposed to come out.
Yesterday, yes.
Yesterday. And they decided to postpone the airing of the show in order to give Lotito a chance to respond and give his side of the story. So they are going to be airing it next week, I think. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that one goes and what he has to say about it.
Yes, can I add the funny thing that the guy doing this thing, it's a Roma fan, and has been shown with the Roma shirt, etc. So you can.
I mean, his name is literally Roma, isn't it?
But that could happen. There was a goalkeeper that a Lazio goalkeeper that was named Roma. So, but yeah, you can see that this is not real journalism. This is not, something did with partiality and things like that. So, yeah, it's bad journalism, absolutely. And again, the thing is, 7 years ago this came out and nothing happened, and now suddenly it comes back and it's really huge. At the same time, L'Espresso comes out with quotes of how do you call it in English? A lawyer. No, it's not a lawyer. It's a magister, something like that. How do we say it? Well, I don't.
Magistrate.
Yeah, magistrate with the WhatsApp chat with Baldissoni and the Roma CEO. I don't remember if he's CEO, not anymore. I think he's sport director, something like that, asking favor to him for Roma, and this didn't go anywhere. You don't find it on Gazeta dello Sport, Corriere della Sera, Corriere dello Sport, nowhere. And there are recorded WhatsApp chat of Baldissoni talking with this guy to help Roma. You remember the problem of the stadium with Parnas, etc. And he's asking, hey, what's going on? Can I help, etc., etc. This is terrible, and there is nowhere. Gazeta dello Sport, who's talking about something 7 years ago, hasn't got anything about this. So you can understand that Italy, unfortunately, it's a little bit like that, right? We have to. Lotito is fighting the Juventus power. We have to attack him. Roma, we don't care. It's bankrupt in a couple of months. We avoid talking about anything. So I'm not saying that Lotito it's an angel. He's crystal clear. Not at all. He made mistakes, etc. But you have to be honest and point out the mistakes of everybody and not who is your enemy.
Yeah, I mean, I think what people want is a degree of even-handedness, and from the start, there's been suspicions of Lazio not really getting that. And I think that actually, to be honest, Lotito kind of brings it on himself a bit by constantly complaining of media bias against Lazio and kind of various conspiracy theories or so on. But I think the more you make those kind of complaints, the more you put a target on your back sometimes. But look, I mean, he's an unpopular figure. He really is, and people are out to get him, and it's a serious accusation. There's no reason why that story shouldn't be pursued. I think that you're right in pointing out that it's not been necessarily pursued in the even-handed way we might have liked. But yeah, I guess what I would like to know now is kind of where we go from here. I would also really like to know how many open legal cases Claudio Lotito has. I mean, it must be phenomenal.
Well, the biggest problem is he brought to court a lot of people, even Mauro Zarate, and I think he never won one. I think he lost all the time. Even with Zarate, he won in the first appeal, lost in the second. So that's the most scary part, because every time he brings someone to court, he loses. So this is the most concerning part. The Italian Football Federation opened a case about this, so they're gonna work on this and see if there's really something about it. So I think we're gonna know it in a couple of months. But on the other side, Alistair, we have to say that all this going against Claudio Lotito help Lazio in a way, because we remember in the past there were the pro Lotito and against Lotito. Now all Lazio fans are all together against the enemy, right? All trying to defend Lazio against the others. There's no more against Lotito and pro Lotito inside Lazio fan. They're all together against Gazeta dello Sport and all the enemies of Lazio. So this is probably the most positive thing about all this problems Lazio is facing.
I don't know if I'd go as far to say as that every Lazio fan is behind Lotito now. I mean, it really wasn't that long ago that they had the free Lazio protests going on and things like that. So I think you do still meet Lazio fans who have very strong opinions against Lotito. It does help now over the last few years that he's made a good appointment in Simone Inzaghi. He's built a good team. The team's been winning trophies, and this year has really kicked on to another level entirely. And so I think that it does go to show that the better the team's performing on the pitch, obviously, the better the fans think of their owner. But yeah, I mean, that kind of siege mentality, it can help a bit sometimes. I think, if it is kind of like the world's against us. It's us against them, then that might even help on the pitch in a certain way. But I don't know. I would still rather, to be honest, not have to deal with. I find some of the squabbles over these kind of things are quite petty. Who's written what where and who they support and all this kind of stuff. I find it a bit,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think on the long run, it doesn't work out. And I think we talked about it in this podcast. I think that signing Diagonale was a terrible mistake. He's attacking. When the league got stopped, he started attacking everybody. And that didn't make sense. I tweeted often that he was only making Lazio look terrible to the open world. So I don't think that, for example, Diagonale is a great signing for Lazio. I don't think that the policy of me against everybody or everybody is against Lazio will work in a long run. But I have to say that these last 3 articles were really terrible. And I never saw nothing about that against Juventus, Milan, Inter, or Roma. Nothing close to that. So I can understand in this situation. And as you were saying, we have to agree that every time Lotito talks, he makes mistakes. He doesn't sound like a nice guy. Maybe he's right saying things, but he's saying them the wrong way, and this doesn't help. Plus, so you needed someone in the communication, someone nicer, someone, Instead, Diagonale is very similar in this case with Claudio Lotito. So I think together the two are terrible. So I can understand why Lazio doesn't look like, the team that everybody supports, even if they play great football. But again, this doesn't justify this article. The 2 penalty of Atalanta. The funny thing is that the journalist who wrote that article was the same one who said after the match that there was clear penalty. So, you don't understand why Gazeta is doing this.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that a lot of it comes down to, like you say, I think the way that Lazio approached the whole situation has their kind of media strategy, if there has been one, has been all wrong. Because wheeling out Diaconale almost every day and Lotito and Di Martino, whoever it is, to basically just be very, very forceful with their opinions, which generally go against whatever decision is currently being made at the time. I guess they felt like they had to speak out and speak their mind. But yeah, if you compare that to Juventus or Inter, for example, they've basically been completely silent this entire time, and it doesn't really make a difference. It's, if anything, it's just made. Those clubs could well have had as strong feelings as Lazio about it. But if you don't voice that in public, then you're not setting yourself up as being, the baddies of the lockdown, which is kind of what Lazio ended up being cast as.
But Alistair, the president of Inter said that the president of Serie A is an idiot, and Gazeta didn't do nothing about it. I mean, that's.
Yeah, there was that. Yeah,
that's unbelievable, right? You attack Lotito for 3 days. The president of Inter said the president of Serie A is an idiot, and the day afterward he did an interview with Gazeta Sport and repeated, said, "No, I'm not changing the mind." And I didn't see a single article of Gazeta Sport saying this is completely bad, this is completely wrong. After that, Inter went silent. But, that's something that, imagine if Lotito did something like that, said that, I think Lazio would have been relegated in the Lega Pro.
Yeah, well, it's one to follow anyway. The other bit of news, Lotito-related news I wanted to pick up on as well was the story around the win bonuses, Scudetto win bonuses that came out today, which is, sounds absolutely extraordinary. And we've heard these kind of stories, we've read these reports throughout the season that win bonuses, but Scudetto bonuses have been set in the contracts and so on. But yeah, I mean, today, I think it was Corriere dello Sport who broke the story saying it was 10 million euros worth, which I think equates to about 400 grand per player if they win the Scudetto, which is a lot of money, and especially a lot of money coming from Mr. Lotito.
He's so sure Lazio has no chance of winning. This is what you want to say. He's so convinced Lazio has no chance and said, yeah, 10,000 million. Who cares? You're not gonna win it. I don't know. Probably one thing that people don't know is that the Scudetto normally doesn't bring a lot of money. If you don't find a big sponsor, then you don't get that much money. The real important thing is getting the Champions League. That's where you get the money out. So I think Lotito, he wants to prove everybody wrong. He wants to say, hey, I want the Scudetto my way, which is not overspending like Juventus, Inter, and Roma. So maybe that's the reason, or maybe, he's so convinced Lazio has no chance now that he said, yeah, I don't care. Let's put whatever you want. Or the other case is, if we don't restart, I don't pay you this 2 months. But if we restart and you win the Scudetto, this is the bonus you get. So this could be maybe the consideration.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem very generous, and I think once you're in this position, you can use any possible tactic you want to try and push them on to the next level. And I think that's quite nice in a way. If like you say, the financial gap between winning Serie A and finishing second in Serie A isn't enormous, so it goes to show, I think, the value of actually winning the competition and what it would mean. So that and also that recognition of being in a position now, in a place where we may not get as good a shot again. I hope we do, but being 1 point off the top with 12 games to go is the best situation Lazio could possibly hope to be in, I think, at the stage of this season. So yeah, there's that as well.
Alex, we didn't talk about another important thing, right? May, it's a very nice month usually for Lazio. There's a lot of good memories. I think there is one in particular that happened this week that we have to talk about, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, why didn't we start the show on the 26th, actually? Why did we start on the 29th? That would have been a nice little birthday. Oh, well. Yeah, happy 26th May to everybody. It's a great day to be on Twitter, I find, as well, on social media generally. Lots of nice memories. It was good to see as well the club replaying the full match on their Facebook page. And yeah, just a lot of nice memories and photos and things being circulated. Good times.
It was interesting to hear Petkovic and Senna Lulic both saying pretty much the same thing, right? At the moment, they didn't recognize the importance of that victory. As the years go by, they understand how important that match was. And, Lulic understand very well every day, but Petkovic that left Lazio the year afterwards, he still get interview, he still get recognition by Lazio fans, etc. And he really understand, years after that was an incredible victory, a great result that, maybe there's never going to be another final between Lazio and Roma.
I loved Lulic did an interview with Lazio Style as well, and he said in it that he now gets far more messages on the 26th of May than he does on his birthday, which I thought was great. Yeah, and for a player like him as well, it's really something that's cemented his legend. You know, he's been a great servant to the club, but let's not kid ourselves. He's never been the flashiest player in the world. He's been a good, honest servant and played a lot of games and been the captain of the club, and all that's brilliant. But I think that the kind of legend of Lulic is built around that goal. And like you say, everything that it meant, and the monumental moment that was for everyone. I mean, I can only imagine, considering your previous anecdotes of big Lazio games, what your headache was like that day.
I was so tense, and as usual, you know, the bad thing is I have so many Roma fans, and I remember after Roma won the semi-final against Inter, a couple of them sent me an emails saying, you know that we're going to win the final, right? You have no chance, as usual, as typical Roma fans. And so I was already preparing, you know, that day, because let's not forget that Lazio wasn't playing great football in the second part of that season. Lazio had a great start, but at the end of the season, Lazio was a little bit collapsing. So I wasn't convinced Lazio would have played that well in that match. Let's not forget we had Sana playing, starting in that match. So, you know, Conco, players that I think a lot of us have forgotten. And so I was really, really nervous. But, you know, when Lulic scored, I nearly had, you know, it's over, it's finished, everything is done. And I remember the free kick of Totti. I thought that was the scariest moment ever, when Marchetti deflected on the crossbar. I thought I was dead there. I really thought, yeah, it's over for me. Goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely for me one of those games where, given how tense the whole experience was of watching it, and the I guess the domination of your emotion over your kind of viewing experience of the game or your analysis of the game or anything like that, means that I've come away with like very, very foggy memory of what the game was actually like. I don't know if you find this as well, or if you've rewatched it since, but it's a strange experience. I remember more the kind of before the game nerves and the during the game nerves, and then the after game euphoria and the goal. But then what happened, everything else that happened is almost kind of like a blur. It was.
You know what I remember clearly? My wife saying to my kids, today, be very calm, go to the other room because your dad is very, very nervous. I can remember that very well. Yeah, I can confirm. And when the match finished, it wasn't joy. It was like, okay, I'm alive. You know, I made it. I relaxed for like 10 minutes. Like, okay, we did it. It's over. I can relax a little bit.
Yeah. No, it's one we'll never forget. So yeah, it's nice to have it so close to the Lazio Lounge birthday. You know, just 3 days apart. Yeah, I mean it is a bit strange, and it's a bit of a shame that we are at the end of May, and it's you know, we're only just talking about starting up football again rather than finishing it. But we are still here. We've managed to make it through this far doing podcasts still, so we've only got another few weeks to go before we can actually start talking about real football again. Hopefully.
Yeah, maybe we're gonna talk about the fixture. Hopefully they're gonna come out, and so talk about what's gonna happen with Lazio, and see how the situation evolves. Because I believe, Alice, that there's gonna be a lot of changes, things coming out in the next week. We talk about Lulic. He's not in Rome. He's not training. He said he's not fit enough. So the injury hasn't completely been solved. So we don't know if he's going to be able to start when the season is going to restart. Luca Falbo has now started to train with the first squad. He's the left winger, let's call it like that, of Lazio Primavera. And he has been added to the first squad because at the moment there's only Johnny on the left side. So this is a problem. We know that Marusic can move on the other side, but obviously Inzaghi wants at least 2 players on both sides We have no idea where Lukaku is. He should be in Belgium.
I was going to say, can you imagine how out of shape Lukaku is going to be by?
Well, no, because McDonald's is closed, so I don't know.
Yeah, but if he's finding it that hard to get fit in normal times, I mean, a pandemic must be, he must be about twice the size.
Yeah, who knows? So, yeah, there are a lot of question marks that we have to discuss in the coming weeks, but we're going to do it next week on a brand new episode of Lazio Lounge. Now we celebrate 3 years of Lazio Lounge. Incredible where we arrive. Thanks for everybody to support us. 3. Now we are able to walk. We need to go into the nursery, right? 3 years.
Yeah. Nice image.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for supporting our podcast. Remember to subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, on our YouTube channel. And, if you want to support our channel, patreon.com/Lazio Lounge, or visit our store. There are new items there. Thank you, Alistair, and good night. And we're going to talk about Lazio next week.
Cheers.